name is Bill Pevey. I belong to the Craftsman's Guild of Mississippi, and we're in our blacksmith shop right now. We'd like to welcome all of you to our presentation. I'll be making a couple of items this morning. I got interested in blacksmithing about 9 years ago, and I've pursued it pretty heavily since then. I got interested in blacksmithing through the Mississippi Forge Council, which is our blacksmith group here in Mississippi. We have members all over the country, as well as in Mississippi. And then I got in the Craftsman's Guild several years ago, and we teach classes here at the Craft Center. Blacksmithing, historically, the blacksmith made everything that was made out of iron and steel. You couldn't go to the store and buy knives and forks and spoons and pots and pans. So everything that was made out of iron and steel was made in the blacksmith shop. Right now I'm holding a broad axe. As you can tell, it's not symmetrical, and it's not symmetrical for a reason. This was used primarily in making a square beam that would go in a building. The reason it's not symmetrical is because it's used, the person making the beam would stand over the beam and chop into the side of it, the full length of it. Then he would take this broad axe, which had a handle that was curved, and he would break out those blocks between the cuts. He would go all the way down that beam. He would turn it 90 degrees and do the same thing again. He did this 2 more times and he had a square beam. I'm sure many of you have seen in old buildings the cuts in that board, that timber, that were made to start that process. All of these items you see here were handmade, some of them many years ago. What I'd like to do for you now is to show you how we make a wall hook. A very simple item, but a lot of the procedures that we go through to make this, we would use making other items. We're going to draw it out into a square taper. We're going to twist it. We're going to bend it a couple of times. And when we get the metal hot, it's just kind of like clay. It's soft, and we can work it and manipulate it the way we want to. So now we'll start making a wall hook. What I'd like to do before we make anything, I want to explain our process and the equipment we use. Here we have a coal forge. We're burning bituminous coal. As the coal burns, the impurities burn off, and we wind up with what we call coke. It gives us a good, hot, clean fire. And one other thing I'd like for you to notice, we've got a squirrel cage blower here that's introducing air up through our fire. It gives us a hotter fire. It gives us a quicker fire so that we can heat our metal more rapidly. Historically, this air was fed different ways. Most of the time it was done with a bellows of some description, so that it's essentially an air pump is what we use and what has been used historically. So right now what I'll do is I'll start on our wall hook, and the first thing I'll do is I'll put a point on it. This will be the part that drives in the wall. Drive into the wall to hang your cap or your hat or your coat. If you had 2 of them, you could put your musket on it. All right, this time what we're going to do, we're going to make 2 bends in it. We'll have the part that goes in the wall and the part that we strike to drive it in the wall. Going to refine our point just a little bit. Now we're going to bend it a couple of times. We're going to use our vise to do that. The vise and the anvil and the coal forge are the blacksmith's main tools. Of course, he has other hand tools that I'll show you in a minute. We're going to cut that off and do essentially the same thing to the other end. To cut this off, we're not going to cut it with a saw. We're going to cut it hot. So we get it hot. blacksmith had a lot of tools that went in this hole in the anvil. This square hole is called the hardy hole. And he would have many tools that would go in here to do different things. Each time we put the item in the fire and take it out is called a heat. Sometimes it takes quite a few heats depending on the size and complexity of your item that you're making. We'll try to keep it as straight as we can while we're working on it. Now we've got a point on our wall hook, and it will heat up a lot faster than the rest of the metal, so we want to stick that on through the fire so that we don't burn it off. This fire can get so hot that we can burn that piece of metal up. If it comes out sparkling, we know we just about burned it up. Now we've got it pretty straight. Now we're going to twist it right here. Now we'll go back to the vise, use it to help us hold this hot piece of metal. We're going to make one complete turn, which gives us a nice twist on that. Now we're going to, as you can see, you've got some stuff coming off that's scale, or oxidation. We can see it's a little bit crooked. Now if we hit it with our steel hammer, we're going to crush our corners. So what we'll do is we'll use our wooden hammer and kind of tweak it back into shape. We might do that a couple of times before this process is over with. Now we're going to put a little curlicue on the end of it. Also here we're just adding a little visual effect to it. Not necessary, but now we're ready for our final bend. To make that final bend, I'll be doing it over the horn of the anvil. I'm going to have to hit that curlicue. If I hit it hot, it's going to collapse. So what we'll do is we'll cool it off in our slack tub. Then we can strike it and it won't bend it so bad. We can always go back and straighten it up a little bit if we need to. Now we're going to straighten everything back up. We're going to put a little beeswax on it. Just a little finish to maybe keep it from rusting. There are a lot more different finishes that you can use. There's another one I use on pieces that I'm going to keep a long time is made up with boiled linseed oil and turpentine with a little Japan dryer in it, which makes a good metal finish. It's best to put it on when the metal's pretty warm. So there's our wall hook. Pretty simple operation, but as I said, we use the techniques we use to make this wall hook we will use to make other items also. Again, my name is Bill Pevey with the Craftsman's Guild of Mississippi. We're here in the blacksmith shop. We've just made a wall hook and talked about blacksmithing and looked at some old handmade tools and whatnot. If this is something that might interest you, that you might want to get involved with, look up your local blacksmith group or craft council, and they will be glad to help you in this endeavor. And we appreciate you looking at this, and thank you a lot.